have a proper justification. So before jumping on, like, in fact, I have updated my slides. I have included, now there are two ways, there are two types of SEM. One is CB based SEM, the other one is the PLS based SEM. Recently, we have a paper published in A grade journal that talks about CB SEM versus PLS SEM and its uses in social science research. Recently, it has been published, and I will share it with you. Uh, the whole idea is that, first, let's have a quick recap of what we have studied so far with respect to mediation and moderation. My question is that why there is a need for mediation? Why do we think that there is a need for introducing an intervening variable? Why do we require an intervening variable, a third variable, into the model? So the answer is that the intervening variable, or the mediator, it actually explains why there is a relationship between X and Y. Here, X is exogenous and Y is endogenous. Or to make it more simple, independent and dependent. So why there is some sort of relationship between these two constructs is being explained by the mediator. We have seen this thing. In fact, we took the example in the previous lecture. We have talked about uh, a student's intelligence and his class performance, and then we were actually trying to explore that how intelligence is being transported or transferred to his class performance. And it could be hypothesized that higher the intelligence of a student, higher would be his class performance. But this is not the case in real world. Real world behaves differently. At times we see the top uh, teams defeated, a top player at uh, getting out on zero. So similarly, we have seen in the previous example that at times we see that students with higher level of intelligence or intelligence scores, they perform not as better as they should have been. So in that case, we need some intervening variables so that could better explain as to how intelligence is being translated into per class performance. So when we are trying to answer why why there is some sort of relationship between two constructs, then we need an intervening variable, and that intervening variable is mediator. But there are certain rules related to mediator. So if you go through the book, there are so many books written on mediation, moderation, and so on, and a number of papers have been written on mediation and moderation. So if you go by them, you will realize the fact that there are certain eligibility criteria to become a mediator. Number one is that the mediator should always come in between independent and dependent variable. This is number one, thumb rule. Rule number two is that now question may come that can we introduce any variable under the sun and can we call it mediator? Let me ask it to you. I mean, can we introduce any variable between independent and dependent, and can we call it as a mediator? The answer is no. The answer is no. We cannot call any of the variable to be mediator, because book says that the mediator must be an obvious outcome of the independent variable, and dependent variable must be an obvious outcome of the mediating variable. And if you go by the languages of books and papers, they suggest that we cannot introduce any moderator, we cannot introduce any mediator unless and until there are two. I mean, we need to have two bases for that. Either it is supported by a theory or it is backed up by the literature. Either some of the researchers they have used it as a mediator or moderator, then we can actually adopt it. Or if it is being recommended in some theories, for example, take UTA. So this theory itself recommends that there are three or four or five moderators, and that's too on different relationships. So the basic eligibility is that not all variables can become a part of any model, and we can call it like this is the novelty. We have introduced x as, or say m as part of as mediator, and then we are going for the test, and this is the novelty of my manuscript or my paper. Rest of the models, I have copied it from any of the paper or any of the books, and then simply I'm introducing another variable, and then I'm claiming it to be a novel approach. No, this can't be. This cannot be. Huh? So always remember, always remember that mediator, introducing mediator or introducing moderator, we must have a sound theory at the back of it, or there are a number of researchers they have used it in their model. And when I say mediator, yeah, so it actually explains why there is some sort of relationship between independent and dependent. When our intent is to find out why this is happening, why this is happening, then now this is the fit case of introducing a mediator. Then we have to revisit our literature. We need to explore certain theories as to how they have explained it, how they have used mediator, how those researchers have introduced a mediator between independent and dependent, keeping them as constant. It's not like we are working on service quality and loyalty, and we are looking for something else. No, keeping them as constant. We are revisiting the same literature, relevant literature, and then we are going to explore as to how researchers they have treated mediators and moderators. That is going to build a foundation based on which we are going to say present something to the reviewers. So one thing is that why mediation? So mediation actually explains the relationship between independent and dependent. Number one. Number two is that there are certain eligibility criteria to become mediator, and one is that it should come in between independent and dependent. Number two, it should be an obvious variable, outcome variable of the independent, and dependent variable should be an outcome, obvious outcome variable of the mediating variable. Number three, we cannot introduce any variable into our model and we can call it like it is going to be a mediator or moderator, something like that. We cannot call it. So for that, books suggest, researchers they have suggested that it should be backed either by the theory or by the researchers, by the literature. I will give you an example of this. So having said this, then further we have seen in the previous lecture that how Barron and Kenny they have actually suggested us to go for the test of mediation. They suggested that there should be 4 steps. We must follow 4 steps in order to arrive at the mediation result. So we also have seen that there are two effects. One is direct effect. The other one is the indirect effect. Direct effect is something wherein There is no mediation. There is no mediator in between. And then we are trying to establish a relationship between two different constructs. One is independent, the other one is dependent, and we have a single arrow. That's it. That's the definition of direct effect. Two constructs, one arrow, and we are trying to establish a relationship. The moment we talk about indirect effect, so indirect effect means now we have introduced mediator. And the moment we have introduced mediator, now there will be a series of relationships. So Baron and Kenny, they call it A, path B, and C hash. So ultimately there will be 4 steps. We have seen these things. And at a later stage, during 2013, 2012, something around that, people started criticizing these steps, which was actually proposed by Baron and Kenny in 1986. There are several criticisms to it. Okay. So yeah, so this is what we have seen so far in mediation. Coming to moderation, what is moderation? Why do we need it? So we have seen the example, like if we have several categories, for example, gender, so we could have male and we could have female. So ultimately, the influence may be taken differently by males and by females. I mean, this is quite obvious. If you look around in the real world, there are several advertisements. There are several products which are being taken differently by males and females. Probably males may go for the functionality of the products, and that could be a motivating factor for males to buy to make a purchase. But there could be other motivating factors for females. So when our intent, when our objective is to go deeper into the relationship and find out as to how this explains how this relationship actually affect different categories that we have, or how by introducing another intervening variable, how the relationship between x and y, the independent and dependent, gets affected, then at that point of time we need a moderator. And we have seen that how it could be tested. First, independent to dependent, so this relationship should be tested. Then we are going for the mediator, standalone mediator against dependent variable. And then in the third step, we need to go for the interaction effect. And whenever I say interaction effect, it simply means that we need to multiply what? The moderator that we have actually introduced into the model with with independent variable. Remember, independent variable need to be multiplied with the moderator. Now, this created interaction. So ultimately, this is going to be tested on the dependent variable. So just giving you a glance of as to how different papers, I mean, could be projected, could be developed. So I will give you an example here. Uh, is it visible? Is my screen visible?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now it's visible.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, so this is one paper, and see here. Uh, Let me go to this line. Although the popularity of eco-friendly hotels, this actually paper revolves around eco-friendly hotels, eco-friendly hotel stay, okay, and environmental attitude. We may have a favorable opinion of staying into environment-friendly hotel, yet that is not being done in reality. So see here it is said that, or we can start from here, that approximately 75% of the total environment related problems caused by the hospitality industry may be attributed to unsustainable consumption of natural resources, resulting into an increase in environmental concern and awareness of environmental issues. Consequently, 61% of the global travelers, now this is, I mean, this is the, the statistics has been derived from Statista, that 61% of the global travelers prefer visiting eco-friendly hotels. Similarly, approximately 33% of the guests at the Hilton group of hotels reported that its eco-friendly characteristics were the prime reason for their stay. 33% at Hilton group, 61% of the global travelers, they have high orientation towards staying into, say, eco-friendly hotels. Now, here comes the important thing, that although the popularity for eco-friendly hotels has been on the rise, yet the actual stay rate in such hotels is comparatively low. Thus, the academic community acknowledges this contradiction, which effectively indicates a gap between environmental attitude and eco-friendly behavior. Eco-friendly behavior, the gap between environmental attitude and eco-friendly behavior. Now, come to this paragraph. This paragraph says that this study aims to specifically address this gap. Which gap? The attitude behavior gap. So the study aims to specifically address this gap. It investigates the role of values both on this. We argue that the understanding of why travelers stay in eco-friendly hotels not only provides scholars with in-depth insights, but also reduces the gap between travelers' attitude and behavior. Now here comes the important line. We further note that the use of eco-friendly product quality We further note that the use of eco-friendly product quality as a moderator between environmental attitude and actual behavior may essentially reduce the much debated gap, because these researchers, they in their paper, which they have actually carried out in 2019, which was published in 2019. So in that paper, they have used the term product quality as a moderator, as a moderator between environmental attitude and actual behavior. So here we are trying to explore uh, environmental attitude and behavior. So ultimately, from the literature, we found that okay, product quality has been used as moderator. So which surprisingly has not yet been considered in hospitality literature. So this is how we have actually uh, prepared our foundation. That's how we have introduced our moderator. So we went to the literature, we found that okay, product quality, the word product quality has been used as a moderator between the independent and dependent that we are interested into, the independent variable and the dependent variable that we are interested into. So product quality has been used as a moderator, and which surprisingly has not yet been considered in hospitality literature. And we also argue that it will actually help us in explaining better explaining, and maybe it will help in reducing the gap as well. So which surprisingly, okay, so taking into account the backdrop of the study's context. Now try to understand that these researchers, they have used the term product quality. So their context might have been different from ours. Ours is hospitality literature. So taking into account the backdrop of studies context, we thereby chose to include service quality as a moderator. So we simply replace them, their product quality with a service quality, because obviously hotel is a service industry. So for that reason, we have replaced the word product quality with service quality. And at the same point of time, we have highlighted, because we believe that within our proposed research model, it would possibly lend a newer dimension and in the process help filling the gap in the extant literature. So again, if I ask the same question, can we introduce any variable as moderator? Can we introduce any variable as mediator? So the answer is no. And have a look at the variable. Yeah, service quality on all relationships. I hope to some extent things are being clear. Yes. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I will start from IBM MS, because the other day someone from the audience has asked that how did I calculated the how did I in fact compute the variables. So I will try to explain that how items can be imported directly into the this MS, and then we can also calculate mediation and moderation. And then we will quickly go to the PLS software, and then we will see how mediation and moderation can be done in PLS software. Okay, then. So let's try to understand from the scratch. So in a survey, we generally come up with a questionnaire. This questionnaire needs to be administered to the respondents. Then the respondents, they are going to answer some of the questions, and ultimately we will say code them into our SPSS sheet. So now you try to relate it with your own case, that this is the questionnaire. This questionnaire actually relates to one of my students who did MBA dissertation under me. So he used this questionnaire to collect data. So using this questionnaire, he approached to some of the respondents 5 to 6 years back. So at that point of time, it was quite easy to have access physically to all the respondents. So this is the data, and he had satisfaction, word of mouth, and loyalty. So before we directly jump to the software, let me have a brief background of the theory of service quality satisfaction. See, the theory says that if we are going to improve service quality, so ultimately that is going to be increase customer satisfaction. So improvement in service quality, increase in service quality is going to be reflected into customer satisfaction with an improvement actually. So increased service quality leads to an increased customer satisfaction. Increased customer satisfaction actually leads to increased loyalty, strong loyalty, and increased loyalty leads to creating word of mouth. So this is how literature actually supports the relationship between service quality, satisfaction, loyalty, and then word of mouth. So, so if we see the data once again, so the researcher, the student, he has three important variables: satisfaction, loyalty, word of mouth. We will assume that loyalty is a mediator because this is an obvious outcome of satisfaction as per the theory. As per the theory, okay, this is an obvious outcome of the satisfaction. So loyalty is an obvious outcome of satisfaction. And again, word of mouth is an obvious outcome of loyalty as per the literature. So this actually makes a fit case for treating loyalty as mediator. Okay, now we are going to use IBM MS. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first we are going to, yes, it is. So first you need to import the data file. So click on file name, go to desktop, desktop, Abhishek, import, and press OK. Now you will find all the variables here: satisfaction, word of mouth, loyalty. Okay, okay. So so let's assume that satisfaction has four say items. So what we are going to do, I'm explaining from the scratch. So first thing that we need to do is that we need to identify as to how many items are associated with the variables that we are going to use. So here we are going to use three variables. First is satisfaction, second is loyalty, and third is word of mouth. Assuming that four items relate to the satisfaction. So we are going to create four, one, two, three, four, and then we are going to place, say, A1. Oh, okay, let's again import the data file. Press OK. I hope now it has been changed. Yes, now it has been changed. So let's assume that A, A1 to A4 are the items related to satisfaction. So A1 has been imported. So A2, A3, and A4. This is done. Then we need loyalty, loyalty as mediator. So, and assuming that it also has four items, one, one, two, three, four. And then word of mouth, the dependent variable in our case. So assume that there are uh, five, that variable has five items. So we are going to create five, and let's take it one by one. R2. Okay, now that's it. We are going to name it like satisfaction. This is loyalty, and this is actually word of mouth. And then we are going to rotate it. And now the single arrow. So first, single arrow between independent to dependent, independent to mediator, mediator to dependent. Then we are going to use magical touch-up. Okay, and then error terms on our dependent variable, and name unobserved variable. Once all done, then we are going for the analysis properties. Go to output, tick standardized estimates. And again, very, very important thing here, that in case of mediation, we are more interested into indirect and direct and total effects. So what is total effect? Total effect is a sum of indirect and direct effect. What is direct effect? Direct effect is the relationship between independent and dependent without any mediator. Without any mediator. In the absence of mediator, if the relationship is being established, then that would be a fit case of direct effect. Then What is indirect? Indirect simply means when we have introduced our mediator. So total effect is a sum of indirect effect and direct effect. And then bootstrap, ultimately we are going to put a tick on perform bootstrap 2000, then bias corrected confidence interval 95. These two things here. In output, we want standardized estimates and indirect, and ultimately press run, and then you will get result. I'm not running it. Reason being that these are not items related to satisfaction or the things. So ultimately, it may not run. Okay. So since we have already seen as to how mediation has been conducted in the previous lecture, so I'm stopping here. I'm simply explaining as to how we can draw those items which we have actually collected responses in our questionnaire. So those items can directly be imported into the model. Hope something is clear as far as IBMS is concerned. Okay, nevertheless. So yeah, so this can be done either of the ways. We can either go for say the computing of the variable. We can club them and form a variable, and then we can directly import these variables and also calculate the mediation analysis. Generally, I prefer going with variable instead of going for the indicators, because at times indicators create some problems. So what we do is that we take a standardized value of all these indicators, and ultimately we take the variables and try to establish the mediation analysis or moderation analysis, as the case may be. I mean, and this is also being supported by the literature itself. I mean, people they are doing it. When was the last time we have seen any person reporting, any of the researcher he has reported, uh, say EFA, like communalities table, KMO table, or the total variance explained table, and then we have rotated component matrix table. We hardly see people presenting them into their manuscript. Also, although these values are important, yet that is not being presented in the manuscript. So similarly, what these days people are what they are doing is that they are trying to do things in a more say simpler way, that instead of using these indicators they directly take the variables, compute the variables, and then they try to establish the relationship, and ultimately they report it into their tables. Yeah, this time I came up with the how to report actually mediation result into your manuscript. I have one slide on that. So let's stop here. Let's close this one and directly come to. So now I'm going to start with PLS based mediation and moderation. So for this, I'm going to use a software which is known as Adanko. Although there are so many softwares around us, uh, Smart PLS, or I mean, I don't remember all the names. There are so many softwares around us, and those are actually based on PLS. So I usually go for the Adanko one. Uh, and actually, Adanko it works on Excel sheet. So you don't have to worry about this because you already have data in your SPSS. So what you can do, you can simply open it and save it in Excel format. Say go to file. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so go to File, Save As, and then here you can change it to Excel. See, Excel 97 to through 2003, then 2007 to 2010. The only difference is that it's .xls, it's .xlsx, a bit advanced than the previous one. So you can change it to into either of the, I mean, Excel sheet. So suppose if I go for this one, so Excel file name would be something like test 16th December 2021, and then I'm going to save it. I don't know where it has gone, but that is the way of doing it. So once you got, yeah, here it is. So test, now it has been saved in Excel sheet. Okay, now let's go to Mediation. As I said that it works only on Excel. So first let's open the software. This is a paid software actually. So yeah, so once the software is open, so we will have we need to go to project, import data. So I will explain you by creating a new model 2, and then I will import data. Okay, although it's already there. So choose, go to the mediation. Yeah, here is the file. Select it, and ultimately it is going to be imported into the model, into the software actually, and then next it will ask for, do you have any missing values? So no missing values is there. Substitution, no substitution, and go to finish. Finish. That's it. Now look at the model: exogenous, mediator, and endogenous. So assuming taking the same example that we had earlier, that is satisfaction, loyalty, and word of mouth. So we can draw here, double click, and you will get this one. Now rename it. So this was our satisfaction. Satisfaction. Let's create mediating variable. This was our loyalty. And third dependent variable was word of mouth. So that's it. Now let's have a look on the uh, items. So question number 4, question number 15, question number 16, and question number 17 relates to our exogenous variable 4, 15, 16, 17. So 4, 4, 15, 16, 17, 15, 16, 17. Okay. Now next is loyalty. Let's have a look. Loyalty 11, 12, 13, 14. Loyalty is 11, 12, 13, 14. Here is 11. So let's drag 11 to loyalty. 11, 12, 13, 14, then 6, 7, 8, 9. 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. So by default, uh, this software actually allows us uh, that if we place our cursor on any of the variable, so it will automatically have a default setting like an arrow can start from here up to the next variable. Unlike in IBM MS that we have to click upon an arrow, then only we can actually place an arrow between two variables. But in this software, it is by default. Some settings have been done that if we place our cursor over any of the variable, so ultimately an arrow can be started from here to here, here to here. Now this software is quite fast. See, eh, simply putting an arrow and we got the result. Okay. Now see this Adanko. Let me explain you one thing. See, this is the home or the software that I am presently using. Okay. So you can go to the support and you have access to user manual. You can download it. And once it is downloaded, let me open it. Yeah. See, mediating effect. So in their user manual, the 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 people those who have actually created this software, they have in fact listed down that how we can run mediating effect, or how can we run analysis. So for that reason they have suggested that we must first set up the things like go to page number 17. Yeah. so, so similarly we are going to do some settings in our analysis. So go to run here. This should be, I mean, it need to be complete because we are going to use all the analysis, and default by default it will be say this setting. But since I have changed it to complete, now this has become my default setting. Complete means all the analysis, all the results need to be produced, and then as per the say the user manual, They suggest that we must put a tick mark over use bootstrapping and assess model fit. So ultimately, use bootstrapping, put a tick mark, and assess model fit, and then generate seed and bootstrap samples. It need to be 4999. Now this has been recommended by the people itself, those who have created this software. They have recommended it that whenever we go for the test of structural equation modeling, or say mediation and moderation, we must use bootstrapping, number one. Number two, the bootstrap samples should be 4999. So we are going to keep it 4999. Save and run. It will take some time, and ultimately we are going to get result. Okay, now it's done. Okay, so unlike IBM MS, wherein we get the result in text format, here this software actually gives result in HTML format. So let's have a look at the results. It will take some time. Is it visible? Okay, so this is how results are being produced in the software. So the very first thing, graphical representation of the model with all the values over here. Then overall model fitness. Unlike IBM MS, wherein we have different criterias to, or say different indices to evaluate the fitness of the model, here in we actually go for only three indices: SRMR, DULS, and DG. And since we are doing mediation, so yeah, here we have construct reliability, then we have convergent validity. uh, Cronbach alpha value is 0.7463, so that's green. It's close to sevens, that's why it's orange. AVE need to be around 5, so two values are 5, but this one is a bit low. So ultimately, we are more interested into the direct and indirect effect. So here we get, once we click this bootstrap, so you will get the direct effects, the indirect effects, and the total effects, as simple as this one. Now let's try to understand what has happened here. So satisfaction to loyalty, satisfaction to loyalty, satisfaction to loyalty. This is significant. The t value is 15 point something. Okay, so anything above 2 is good. So p value is significant, so ultimately this is significant. Again, satisfaction to word of mouth. Satisfaction to word of mouth. This is our dependent variable. So satisfaction to word of mouth, and yes, this is also significant. So yeah, this is significant. This is also significant. And let's have a look at the third one: loyalty to word of mouth. Loyalty. This is mediator to our dependent variable, and again, this is also significant. So what does it mean? What would be the interpretation of this result? All the three relationships are significant. So what does it mean?
I think this is a case of partial mediation.
Very good. This is a case of partial mediation. Generally, there could be three outcomes. Whenever we go for mediation analysis, there could be three outcomes. Either there is no mediation, there will be partial mediation, or there will be full mediation. So when can we call a case of full mediation?
So when the direct relationship is no longer significant, when the third variable enters between the two, which is a mediator.
When the direct relationship,
When the direct relationship is no longer significant.
no
When,
longer significant, in the presence of mediator, so that will make a case of full mediation, right? So Professor Hayes and Professor Hay et al. And Preacher and Hayes, they have actually came up with the idea that the moment direct relationship it gets insignificant, so that makes a case of full mediation. Okay, so yes, and ultimately the total effects, as I said earlier, total effect is nothing but sum of direct and indirect effect. Here you will see that satisfaction to word of mouth is 0.2139. In most of the cases, you will find that values are same. For example, satisfaction to loyalty 0.71181. Here in total effect in satisfaction to loyalty 0.7181. And let's have a look 0.718. So same. Okay. Then loyalty to word of mouth 0.5370. Loyalty to word of mouth 0.537. Now, here is a slight difference. You will notice that there is some slight difference in the values of found direct relationship, in fact. So here, what we are going to do, since this total effect includes both direct and indirect effect, so satisfaction to word of mouth, here the value is 0.2139, 2139. And then indirect effect, it is given like 0.3856. So ultimately, when I say that the total effect is a sum of direct and indirect effect, so what you can do, you can test it like cal calculate like where is calculator? So here we have 0.2139. So 0.2139 plus 0.3856, 0.5995. Here we have 0.5995. Again, the total effect is nothing but a sum of direct and indirect effect. Okay, so the rest of the values were same: 0.7181, 0.7181, 0.5370, 0.5370. The only difference lies here. bec- The only difference lies in this direct relationship, because if you recall, when I was teaching the steps of Baron McKinney, he actually suggested that there could be C, the path C, and C hash. So ultimately, we will have two values, and then 0.2139 from direct effects. This need to be added to the indirect effect, and ultimately we will get total effects. So the overall say interpretation of the result is this, that this all the three relationships, are significant. Hence, this is a case of partial mediation. Now we had data, we put them into the software, and the software has given us result. Now this is our responsibility as a researcher to support this result. Why in our case this has this the relationship has appeared as a say partial mediation? Why this? Why wasn't it? It was a case of full mediation or no mediation at all. So we need proper justification to support this answer. Okay. Now moving on to moderation. Hope this is clear to you. What we did actually, we had three variables, and with all their indicators items, we drive all those variables, and then one by one we drag those items and place them on their respective variables, and then we place these arrows, and then we press the button for calculation. Ultimately we got the result, and then we went to see as to how the results have been. So in that case, we need to go to bootstrap, and ultimately we have seen the results. Yes. So this was a bit simple, but whenever we are going for moderation in PLS, so we need to be done in two steps. They have suggested it in their um, where is yeah, here is their user manual. So if you go to the user manual, yeah, moderating effects. So while calculating moderating effects, we need to go through these two steps. I will explain them. So let's close this one, cancel. Yes, again, I would like to explain another thing, that directly we can also go for the variable. The way I have explained it in IBM MS, it could be done exactly in a similar fashion. How? We just need to compute all the variables. For example, here we have mediator, exogenous, and endogenous. Here we need to draw these three variables, and ultimately these computed variable need to be dragged and placed on respective variables. Ultimately, we need to place these arrows and run the analysis. So either of the ways you can go for. Either you can go directly like this one by placing all these indicators, or you can go for this one. So going to moderation. Okay, so we are following the same example that we have seen previously, and that was related to environmental orientation. Let me open that paper. So environmental orientation, green apparel buying behavior. Then we have moderator, which is environmental knowledge, and moderator. Second moderator is monetary incentives. And we have seen how environmental orientation has been defined. That environmental orientation is nothing but an individual's commitment towards saving the environment. And this is his actual buying behavior. His actual buying behavior and individuals' commitment towards saving the environment. And then we have two moderators which have been derived from the literature. So yes, in the very first step, what we are going to do, and we have also seen that what could be the steps that we need to do in moderation. There are only three steps. Remember these steps. Yeah, that in case we have one independent dependent variable and one moderator. So how we can actually calculate this thing in our softwares. So there will be three relationships when we have only one moderator. There will be three relationships. First, between the independent and dependent, then the moderator as a standalone, and then we are going to test it on the dependent. Remove these two, uh, and standalone, the moderator and dependent variable. In the first step, we standalone the independent variable and the dependent variable, and then and interaction has been created by multiplying this one, like environmental orientation multiplied by monetary incentives. So this interaction need to be introduced and need to be tested on the dependent variable. So there will be three relationships when we have one moderator. So here you can see that we have two moderators in this particular graph or figure. So we have two moderators. One is independent and we have one dependent variable here. So similarly, this is our environmental orientation, the independent variable. This is our dependent variable. And then these two are our moderators. MI, monetary incentives, EK, environmental knowledge. So what we must do? First, we need to, in PLS, we need to do it in two steps. Yeah, it says that we need to follow two steps. So in the very first step, what we are going to do, we, without any interaction. So we are not creating any interaction. In the second case, we have created interaction. Okay. So that is missing in the first model. So without creating any interaction, we will only use independent variable, moderator, and dependent variable. No interaction variable will be there. So ultimately, we need to run it. Run this one. Yeah. So by the time we get some result, let's so estimate the model without the interaction. So in the very first step, we are not going to introduce interaction, and then it says that the user manual itself says that extract the construct scores. So we are going to get some scores. So construct scores for what? For those variables that we have actually used in our first model. And then using those scores, we are going to create an interaction term. Once that is done, then we are going to use in the second step, then we are going to estimate the model, including the interaction. So first step, don't use interaction. simply use those variables that we have around and then run it. Let's see whether the result is there or not. No. So this was the first uh, uh, data sheet that I have used for running the step one. And once we get this course, yes, now go to results and go directly to scores. Here's the scores. It says that extract scores. It says extract the construct scores. So directly go to scores. Yes, here we have all the scores, standardized construct scores. Now we are going to copy it, copy them, and then we need to place them into the same Excel sheet. So let me create this one, a new sheet, and place them. We have all these values here. Now next, we need to create interaction effect. Interaction effect, how? Like independent variable multiplied by uh, the moderator. So here we have independent variable multiplied with the moderator, and then we have some result over here. Okay, so now we are going to call it like EO, environmental orientation, and EK. This is, or we can better call it interaction one. Interaction one. Similarly, interaction two, since we have two moderators, so there will be two interaction effects. So again, independent variable multiplied with the second moderator, double click it, this will be called as interaction 2. Is it clear? Now we are going to use this data for our interaction effect. This is how it has been suggested by the uh, people who have created this software in their user manual. So we are done with the first step. Now we need to go to step number 2. We have we extracted the scores of the constructs. Constructs means the variables that we had earlier. Two moderators, one independent variable, one dependent variables. We extracted their scores, standardized scores, and we pasted them in the Excel sheet. Then we created the interaction value. How by multiplying the independent variable with the moderators. We had two moderators, so ultimately we will have two interaction effects. So okay, so interaction one, interaction two. Now I'm going to use here. So again, let's have a look. This is our dependent variable. This is our independent variable. This is our dependent variable. Then the those two moderators stand alone, like monetary incentives, then environmental knowledge, and then these are the interaction effects. These two are the interaction effects: environmental orientation and EK, that is environmental knowledge. Environmental orientation, that is independent variable with monetary incentives. So ultimately, we have two interactions, two moderators, one independent and one dependent variable. So what is next? So next we are going to, once we have done all this, similar to this one, like here, independent to dependent, moderator to dependent, and interaction effect to dependent. So once it is done, then we are going to run. Okay, complete. Okay, everything is okay. Copy if model one. Yes, it is model one. Yeah, and then save and run. It will take some time. Okay, now it's done. Show results. So we need to directly go to Bootstrap. Let's wait. Okay, so let's have a look here. Like this is our independent variable, this is our dependent variable, and t value, as I said that it should be more, anything above 2 is good. So here t value is 5.8610 and significant. So I'm talking about E of environmental orientation and GABB. So environmental orientation and GABB, this relationship. Interpretation is what? That if our exogenous variable to dependent variable is significant. So yes, it is significant. This one, independent, dependent, significant. So significant. Next, uh, let's take the example of MI. MI is monetary incentives. Monetary incentives is T value, yeah, above 2 and significant. So this one is also significant. So moderator to dependent variable is significant. Then we have this one, interaction effect, MI, environmental orientation. That was our independent variable, and this was moderate monetary incentives. This was our moderator. So interaction effect of these two. So ultimately, yeah, again t value 5.0326, and this is also significant. So see here, interaction. If interaction is significant, if moderator stand alone, when we are trying to test the moderating variable and dependent variable, if that comes out to be significant, and stand alone the independent variable and dependent variable, if that comes out to be significant, so obviously there is some moderation effect. So the answer is yes, there is moderation effect. So in this case, monetary incentives, yeah, there is moderation effect of monetary incentives. Now moving on, let's have a look. Like here, independent, our independent variable was environmental orientation, and this is significant. So yes, significant. Then EK, that is environmental knowledge. Our second variable, second moderator, that is environmental knowledge. Now environmental knowledge standalone, if we are trying to test the relationship between environmental knowledge and dependent variable, now that is less than 2, and here this is insignificant. So once it is not significant, so ultimately moderator is not significant. Although our exogenous variable is significant, yet our moderator is not significant. Okay, nevertheless, let's have a look at the interaction effect, as it says that we need to check out the interaction effect as well. So let's go to interaction effect. Interaction effect is this one. In our independent variable, then we have our moderator ek is this one, which was insignificant. So ultimately when we try to look at it, so we find that okay, again it is less than 2, and here we have no, this is also not significant. So what does it mean? It simply means that when our moderator is not significant, when our interaction effect is not significant, although we have our exogenous variable is significant, yet there is no moderation. So this is the same data that we have used in the previous lecture as well, wherein I tried to establish the relationship between, say, in MOS, and ultimately the result was same. That at that point of time also we got that monetary incentives appears to be a significant moderator in comparison to environmental knowledge. And in fact, that sounds quite obvious also, if we are going, if marketers, they are going to give us certain amount of incentives, either in the form of discounts, either in the form of cashbacks or something like that. So ultimately that is going to propel us, motivate us to consume eco-friendly products. So with all these things, uh, I would like to conclude that yes, always remember that mediator and moderate, in case of mediation and moderation, never go deep into that which step should I use, which software should I use. Softwares and other things are say secondary. What matters most is that on what theoretical background you have built your model. If you are trying to introduce some mediator, some moderator, so on what theoretical background those models have been proposed, or those mediators and moderators have been proposed. And as I said earlier, that even if you put any data into your softwares, ultimately you are going to get some results. Either it will be significant, either it will, or it will be uh, not significant. So ultimately what matters most is that the justification that you come up with to support your answer. Because at the end of the day, reviewers are not interested contributing to the, say, saving the environment. Or I may have a favorable opinion towards staying in an eco-friendly hotel, but that is not being reflected in by my action. So my words, my thoughts are different from my own action. So here, if we introduce service quality and then we try to, say, influence the relationship between the behavior and the attitude, so we found that okay, the moment we start improving the service quality of these eco-friendly hotels, so ultimately our intention to stay in hotels have also got changed, have also that's how things present in your, and it must be logical. The way I said in this particular wherein we receive that monetary incentives is appearing a significant moderator. And if you will see that any person who has lived in the environment, them satisfaction in their purchase, their actual behavior, remain absent, that the marketers, they are giving certain, but what would happen the same monetary incentives is being given to those towards saving the environment? They want to work, but they are that stop. One such fact is I have also said that based products, they come for a purpose, they for time be one of which stops an individual from consuming a product. So we can actually relate this thing with our this finding, like monetary incentives could enhance the likelihood of adoption of a particular product, or the sale of eco-friendly products if marketers come up with some monetary incentives. Yeah. And at the same point of time, we have another moderator, which was environmental knowledge. Though we have studied it in our class 6, from class 6 to class 10, we have studied environmental science, and that environment should not be degraded. We should conserve our environment, and this and that. A lot of things have been said, and a lot of things have been read, but that is not being reflected in our action. So even if I have more information about the existence of the product, those brands which are products, yet that is not being reflected that is not going to it is. So support like comes major high people started marketing any of the environment friendly products. A majority of the people in it, the more would be the sale of the true in case of environmental that higher will be the sale of the environment friendly products. Advertisement on TV that is on YouTube mobile, and that is and going to be reflected in increase in the quantum of sales also may as it is. As has that if some market the is something start offering some ounce or something it cost actually help us in increase who have fair of commitment towards saving the environment to actual consumers. Okay, so by the underlying that what that we get, be it significant for that support must be because there is a surge in I am seeing that the at this so these people they want the cream. I mean they at times we they could have given us revision or two revision they could have said no they are so select approach. We need to update ours in a way to be the result okay thing but prior how do we support our results. So with this I
Sir, as you said about the part, so often we take more than one mediator, say two or three mediators, and that may be in the same or different direction. So how do we interpret or explain their results?
yeah that could be I mean yeah in different models we use a number of mediators. In fact same mediators I have seen a paper wherein the independent variable and the same independent variable was used as a moderator. So ultimately the lines remains the same that if you find there are some significant result so on the basis of that we are going to call it like okay this comes out to be a prominent mediator in our case.
So suppose if I have two mediators instead of one,
How
my
many?
total two mediators,
Hmm.
and say one of them is in positive direction and one of them is in negative direction. Example: stress, well-being, and you can say substance abuse, or and positive interpretation or positive approach planning. So in such a case, the total indirect
Slow.
effect
You
would
have a
differ.
stress.
Which stress is the predictor, well-being is the
Okay. If you
dependent
have a stress,
or
you have a
outcome.
stress as a predictor. Okay.
Stress leads to say substance abuse and it leads to well-being. This is the one mediation. Second is stress leads
Substance
to the
abuse.
substance abuse as
Okay.
the mediator. The second one is say
As a mediator
stress
between stress and well-being.
well-being. In the second
Okay.
direction, I take planning as a mediator.
In the second step.
Yes, I take stress leading to planning and it is leading to well-being as a mediator. So in the same model, if I try to see a
Okay,
coping
so
strategies,
is it parallel mediation case?
it would be parallel. So
It would
in
be
such a
parallel.
case, how
Yeah.
do I interpret the results? Because the total indirect effect would always get nullified by each other,
Acha, since one is negative and the other one is positive.
right?
Exactly. This is what you're for. So your question is that how you are going to interpret this one?
Yes, sir. When the directions are different and total indirect effect would be explained, or we would just focus on the indirect effect. That's it.
In that case, I think I'm not pretty sure, but I think that we need to take into account the total effect. Uh, Total effect, which includes direct and indirect effects. We need to focus upon the table that basically reflects our total effect. If the mediation that mediating variable, if it comes out to be significant, in that case we can say that yes, so and so variable has come out to be significant mediator, otherwise it won't.
So suppose if I get one as significant independently and the other also is significant independently, but their total effect, because it gets nullified, it is not significant. So how do I interpret such kind of results?
So usually we go with the help of the say uh, the total effect. The total effect, we usually we go with the total effects, the values that we actually get in total effects.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And for that reason, if I don't know whether you have seen the previous paper which I have shown in the previous lecture. There I have shown one of the researchers. They have used a model and they have gone for parallel mediation, and then they have reported their findings in a similar fashion. They have used total effects actually to support their answers, whether both the mediators are standing or not. I mean, in their case. So on the basis of that, actually, I can say that yes, total effect should be taken into consideration.
Is there anyone else who is having any kind of question for Dr. Adil?
In case you have any problem, any of you, any of the participants, so my email ID is with the organizers. My phone number is with the organizers, so anybody can approach them and ask for the email ID. We can have one-to-one on any time, whenever if we feel like you are in a fix whether to use this one, that one. Then in that case, we can sit and we can sort out things.
So I don't think Dr. Adil they're having any kind of question. The Department of Management actually, we are actually thankful to you that you have been say a support for us to just in this organizing this kind of workshop. So we from the bottom of our heart we thank you to accept our invitation to just guide the participants through these technical things actually which has become actually necessary and which has become a part of say this research culture, because we have been seeing that. And then you also have shared this, that there are a lot of say editors who are asking this, that why are you not going for say mediation and moderation. So we are thankful to you that you accepted our say invitation and then just shared your views on these technical say topics. Thanks a lot, Dr. Adil.
Thank you so much. Okay.
So we'll be sharing the feedback link in the chat box to participants. Please fill the feedback form.
We will meet at 2:30 sharp. with Ajay sir for the next session.